When we have a fever, we use a thermometer to know how serious our illness is. When someone has high blood pressure, they use a blood pressure monitor to track their condition. But when we feel emotionally exhausted, constantly sad, or on the edge of the depression, what do we have to monitor? Is there a tool we can use to track our emotional states? Something simple, objective, and accessible. This question made me start thinking, why is it so easy to measure our physical health, but so hard to measure our mental health? The reason I began thinking about this is because I'm seeing more and more of my classmates struggling with depression. And this is not just a personal observation, it's a global trend. Avid biological studies and meta-analysis show that the depressive symptoms among adolescents has been increased steadily in recent years. Some studies shows that about 1 out of 5 adolescents have been experienced depression or serious depressive symptoms, a proportion much higher than previous decades. For example, in the UK, the proportion of 16 to 24 years old with a common mental health problems increased from 18.9% to 25.8% in 10 years from 2014 to 2024, a relative increase about 36%. These numbers are not just statistics. They represent real people, real pain, and real future at risk. After adolescents develop depression, many of them are afraid to face it. At the same time, many of their parents refuse to admit that the children may be suffering from the depression. Mental illness is still surrounded by fear, misunderstanding, and stigma. Because of this, many people delay seeking help until the problems become severe. What if it could change the way people think about the mental illness? Not as something shameful, but as something we can measure and manage, just like the physical health. This made me started to imagine a simple device, an emotional detector or happiness index detector that people could use in their daily lives to track their emotional states. If people could see early warning signs of their emotional decline, they might take action earlier, just like we do when we see a high body temperature or rising blood pressure. You know what? If this device is invented, guess who will be the first person I really want to test it on? That's a good answer, but I want to say is, that's my mom. Imagine, once I get home from school, I can use this tool to check her emotions. Let's see, angry? Definitely won't tell her about my terrible biology grade. Again, happy. It is time for me to get some pocket money. Importantly, this device will not be marked as a mental illness detector, but as a tool for people to do emotional management. If used in this way, people will be more willing and even interested in using it. So, is this product feasible? After my research, I believe it is. Brainwaves in healthy individuals differ significantly from those of patients with mental illness. As you can see in the figure, In normal individuals, when they're calm, the brainwaves shows a relatively wide range with a longer wavelength. When they become excited, the amplitude decreases and the wavelength shortens. However, for the individuals with mental illness, the brainwaves occur in much different patterns. And different mental illness have different fluctuating patterns. For depression, the brainwave shows a very low in frequency. But for the anxiety, the brainwaves could have a much higher frequency. By identifying and analyzing these patterns differences between normal emotional states and potential mental health risks, it is possible to distinguish whether this person has mental illness or at risk of developing one. What really interested me during my whole research was the process of figuring things out. At the beginning, I thought the brainwaves worked like the blood pressure, like there's a normal range for everyone, with a fixed maximum and minimum. And if your brainwave goes outside of that range, that means something's wrong. But as I kept researching, I found I was totally wrong. I realized that everyone's brainwaves are actually very different. As you can see in the figure, while calm, the smallest brainwave range could be only about 600. But the largest one can go up to 38,000. Similar to the calm states, when they become excited, the smallest brainwave range could be only about 300, but the highest one can go up to 68,000. This data means maybe my brainwaves fluctuate between 1,000 to 2,000, but someone else, maybe yours, your brainwaves might fluctuate between 10,000 to 20,000. That's a great difference. How can we compare people like that? If everyone's brainwaves are actually very different, why do we always compare ourselves to others instead of comparing ourselves to our own baseline? That started to make sense to me. If everyone knows their stable average, which reflects how their brain usually behaves when they're calm or potential or emotional stable, it is possible to tell whether something's off. If your brainwaves go outside of your calm range for a long time, that means something isn't right, like the early signs of developmental problem. I hope this product can be successfully launched and benefit people. If people could be informed in advance when they're potentially sick, they might take action early, so the risk of developing mental illness can be reduced. More importantly, I hope users can take proactive steps to manage their emotions. Ultimately, my greatest hope is not that everyone uses my product, but one day, people will no longer need it. Their hearts are not filled with darkness, but with light. Not filled with fear, but with courage. And not filled with despair, but with hope. Thank you.